Well, happy Easter. Doesn't our band make it so easy to celebrate a day like today? Yeah, and it's just great. Just so grateful for the band that we have, for the way that they just make it easy to celebrate in song, that our Savior, that He has risen. Today we're starting this brand new series called Crosswords, and we're going to be doing this series just for 3 short weeks. Is all we're going to be doing. We're going to be focused on the events of Easter, the events of the cross during these 3 weeks. And I've got to tell you that this series is a series, when we look at this, doing this with crosswords, that everybody should have one of these. Show me you're with me. Everybody got a crossword puzzle with you? All right, very good. We're going to be using that during the series. This is going to be, I think, our most interactive series that we've ever done as a church, as we're going to be using this all 3 weeks. We're actually going to look at 8 of these words today that we're going to solve today together as a church. Some of you guys might have already been engaged and already started doing some of that, and that's fine. You're an overachiever. But let me tell you, when it comes to crosswords, I'm a guy that I don't like crossword puzzles. That's my confession to you this morning. I don't like crossword puzzles. I'm not very cultured, and so I'm not very good at them from the trivia side of things. I can't do it well that way. I'm also a terrible speller. And so because I can't spell well, that doesn't help me at all either. So just between the two, I'm just not very good at it. And so whenever I've sat down to do a crossword puzzle, what I've realized is why I don't like them so much is because they remind me that I'm not as smart as what I think I am. I mean, that's just the reality. When I look at Will, you're not as smart as what you think you are. And there's probably some of you in the room that you're like, hey, you can't wait to get up and see what the next crossword puzzle is of the day and have that time set out, and you just enjoy doing that, and more power to you, and hopefully that'll be something that'll make it a positive experience for you for these next 3 weeks, that maybe for you, you're like going, oh, it's Easter, I've got to be at church, I got to go because it's Easter Sunday. Put up with that. I'll do that boring thing again. And you walked in and you saw, what? Crossword puzzle? Oh, church isn't going to be so boring after all. Maybe that's you. I don't know. Or maybe you're more like me and you're going, oh, crosswords. I'm not good at these at all. Well, we're going to work on them together. And so I think that's going to make it easier for those of you that are more like me. But it is going to be a great time as we spend some time looking at crosswords. We're going to spend 3 weeks looking at what are these different specific words that we need to really understand, that we need to be fully engaged on when it comes to the events of Easter, the events of the cross. Jesus is somebody that he did a lot to prepare his disciples for what they were going to endure, what they were going to see, and what was going to happen when it came to the events of Easter, for the crucifixion as well as for the resurrection. And then Jesus did all that he could do to help prepare them and kept telling them over and over. In fact, he made a lot of predicting words. He kept predicting and kept telling them what was going to happen. He knew that Friday was coming, this day that he was going to end up on the cross. He knew it. And he started telling his disciples and even telling others, this is going to happen. But he didn't stop there. He also began to say, hey, but 3 days later, I'm going to rise from the dead. I'm going to be raised, and I'm going to come back to life. And he told them this too. And I think that as he was telling them this, that he knew it was going to be really important for them to have some kind of hope to hold on to. That he knew that as Friday would come, that would be a very dark time for them. And that it was going to be very dark from Friday night until sometime on Sunday, where he was going to show himself as the resurrected one. You know, we live at a time that we live in hindsight. We get to see all of this and the evidence. We get to see it after it has already happened. And it makes it so much easier for us to have the kind of faith that God wants us to have. So during these next 3 weeks, we're going to be focusing on 3 different sets of words. We're going to focus today on predicting words. We're going to look at 7 specific words that Jesus predicted. Next week, we're going to look at these perplexing words. And the perplexing words are going to be the words spoken by others. What is it that people were saying about Jesus? What is it that they were recognizing about him between when he was being beaten and when he was on the cross and when he gave his life? And it's going to be perplexing as we look and see who these people are that are saying these different things. And then we're going to finish the series up with pleading words. looking at the words that Jesus spoke as he pled on behalf of humanity. He pled for humanity while he was on the cross. And it's on week 3 that we're going to be sharing as a church together communion. And it's going to be a special time. And I hope that you guys are going to make just as high of a priority these next 2 Sundays as what you've made today. That, yeah, I know it's Easter Sunday, but let's make the next 2 just as high of a priority as we look and we try and we strive to understand more and more about who Jesus is and what he has done and why he went through what he went through. Predicting words. We like predicting words. We like it when others make predictions, especially when they're well educated, when they have the things and the signs and they can read them, they can know. In fact, I think when it comes to the weather prediction, we have a love-hate relationship with weather forecasters. We do. And it's interesting when you're watching the half-an-hour news show and they just keep teasing you and they just keep letting you know, hey, here's a little snippet of, hey guys, we got some real exciting news about what's going to be happening in the upcoming weather weekend. And then they don't tell you. They just keep stringing you along, keep letting you know. And they save it all the way to the end, and then they let you know what the weather is going to be. Because we like that prediction. We like to know what is it that it's going to be and how can we plan for that. And when the weather person gets it right, we love them. And when they get it wrong, we hate it. We're like going, yeah, you can't ever trust those weather people. And it's this love-hate relationship. But we love that prediction. There's another prediction that we kind of like, gentlemen. We tune into what? To Sports Center. Because we like to hear all the analysts and we want to know all the experts and we want to know what their predictions are so that we can be educated, so we can kind of understand. And maybe for some of us, it's the way that we want to go, hey, we already have this belief and we want to make sure that they're seeing it too. But we like these predictions. We like the predictions when it comes to our investments and what's the right time to invest. And nobody's got a crystal ball, but we certainly do like what the experts can predict. We like predictions. We like to hear from others when they're educated and they have an insight that we don't have. But we also like to make our own predictions. We like to predict different things. And, you know, a lot of us have already completed high school. Some of us in the room are in high school. Some of us haven't even gotten there yet. But one of the things I remember about high school my senior year was that what did they do? They made these different predictions. And one of the things they predict is they predict who's going to be the most successful. By the way, they did not pick me. But we make these predictions, and we like the idea of the predictions. We like to know, hey, what is it you think? Because we like predictions. When there's somebody that you love, somebody that you're really closely connected with, and you find out that they're expecting a child, what do you like to do? You like to predict what gender that child's going to be. And you make your prediction, and you just lay it out there, and then you wait and you see what it's going to be. You see, we like predictions. In fact, I've been making a prediction for weeks now concerning this Easter weekend at Crosspoint. And I've been predicting that this is going to be the largest attended weekend that we've ever had in the history of our church, our nearly 13-year history. And it's an easy prediction to make because we keep growing as a church. And Easter weekend is the biggest weekend where people come in. And so I've been predicting that we're going to see nearly 1,500 people come in Easter weekend. And you know what? I think we're going to be really close right there when we see how the numbers end up panning out and landing. But it's a prediction that I've made. Because see, a lot of us look at Easter and go, that's a really big weekend. But for us around here, we believe that we've got 52 big events every year, and it's because the weekend keeps coming. And we treat every weekend like we do Easter weekend. Do we put a lot of effort and energy into crafting the service, crafting the kids' programs and the ministries that go on with them? Because we want to put all that we can into making a great weekend experience. That we put a lot of effort and energy into selecting the songs and creating a music set that's just going to flow. Put a lot of effort and energy into the message that's going to be taught. I just get to be the guy that gets to stand up and be the presenter. But because we work as a team, trying to come up with, hey, what's the best way that we can present God's truth to people in the most creative and most compelling ways? But we see every weekend as a big event. So we know that every weekend we're here to do this thing. We want to reach seekers and we want to build believers every weekend. That every weekend we plan for people that are going to be coming in and sitting in these seats that are not yet convinced of who Christ is. And they're coming in and they're looking and they're going, maybe is this something I should be believing in? Because we're convinced that they're going to be here, that maybe that's you, that you're going to be here. We put a lot of effort and energy into that. And we want to take those that are already believers in the room. And we want to help build you up and strengthen your faith and give you greater reasons to have your faith in Jesus. Well, it's Easter weekend. We're doing this thing called crosswords. And today we're talking about predictions, predicting words. So there's different kinds of predictions that are out there. There's those hopeful predictions that if you're a parent, that one of the things that you might be predicting as a hopeful prediction is that one day your kids are going to grow up enough that they're going to be responsible enough to go live on their own. And that you're going to predict that they're going to move out and be successful and predict that they're never coming back. And maybe that prediction might be true and maybe it won't. Coming back to live, you definitely want them to come back to visit, right? But see, that's a hopeful prediction that we hope that they're going to be successful and be able to be out on their own. There's general predictions. And general predictions, they're not really specific, but they're just kind of in timing and the way and the how. But maybe a general prediction that we might have is that we might predict that we've experienced our last freeze of the winter season. That we've experienced that, we're done. That would be a general prediction. There's those accidental predictions. You know, those accidental ones, they're just whimsical. You're just saying something. You didn't really mean it. You're just kind of talking smack. And maybe you're even going to say, I bet you guys end up dating each other. And you didn't really mean it, but then it turns out they start dating, and you're like going, hey, remember, I said that first. I told you that was going to happen. Because it's just an accidental prediction that takes place. There's specific predictions. Where we look and we just try to say one specific thing about what's going to happen. And maybe there's a lot of people making a lot of predictions about who's going to be the next POTUS, the next president of the United States. And making that prediction of how that election is going to plan out. Because we want to look, we're going to go, okay, look, here's a prediction. Then there's detailed predictions. And we came across this one particular detailed prediction that just kind of felt like, hey, we ought to share this one. And so this is a guy, Colin Kaepernick. And so here's his fourth grade prediction. I'm 5'2" and I'm 91 pounds. Good athlete. And I think in 7 years, I will be between 6 and 6 feet 4 inches, 140 pounds. I hope to go to a good college in football, then go to the pros and play on the Niners or the Packers, even if they aren't that good in 7 years. And two of these things are true now. He is 6'4", and currently, as of like right now, he's still on the 49er team. We'll see how that ends up playing all the way out. But look at that one. In that particular prediction, that's a detailed prediction. And then there's exact predictions. You see, that's what Jesus did. That Jesus gave us exact predictions. That when we look at our New Testament, we can find 24 different passages where Jesus made predictions about what was going to happen with him going to a cross and coming back to life, conquering death. And so let's get on our crossword puzzle and let's begin to see how we can learn some of these things that Jesus wanted us to know and understand. So we're going to start with 14 down, the most significant Sunday in Christianity. So I kind of figured we'd start with one that even somebody like a Will could actually accomplish. And so 6 letters, the most significant Sunday in Christianity, and the answer would be Easter. Easter. So that's not one that Jesus spoke. He didn't speak that word Easter, but we're going to look at 7 more today. And we're going to look at specific predictions that Jesus made. The Easter never falls on the same day from year to year to year to year to year to year. Well, Sunday, yes, but it never falls on the same calendar day. We never know when it's going to be until we look out there and see what's happening with the moon in the springtime because Easter is based on the first Sunday after the first full moon in the spring. And that's when we get this Easter. And why do we do that? It's because, see, Jesus gave his life on a Friday, right before this special day, the special Saturday that was being celebrated called the Passover. The largest festival event in the Jewish culture is Passover. And so Jesus gave his life the Friday before that. And Passover was always after the first full moon in the spring. And so we just follow with this celebration of Easter, following that same timeline of when Jesus gave his life in regards to the Passover timing. And so that's how we get this. So that's your trivia for this morning. So now let's get into the hard facts of what we need to know and understand and see about Jesus and his predictions. So we're gonna get 3 of these that we're gonna do back to back. So we're gonna look at 5 down, how Jesus ended up in the hands of his enemies. 22 across, Jesus came back to life on the blank day. And 9 across, the greatest, most significant prediction fulfilled. So here's some music for you. And you guys go ahead and answer this. Okay, so apparently there's a lot of me's out there. A lot of people like me, very intimidated by crossword puzzles, especially when all you have to write with is a pen and not a pencil, right? So let's look at these. 5 down. How Jesus ended up in the hands of his enemies. 8 letters. Help me out. Betrayed. Betrayed. 22 across. Jesus came back to life on the 3rd day. And 9 across. The greatest, most significant prediction fulfilled. We're not as confident on this one, are we? Raised. Raised. So let's take some time and look at where Jesus spoke these. Because see, predictions can be lofty. Predictions can be these things that you just have this big dream, these big ambitions, and you can just make those kind of predictions, and those are fun. There's even sometimes there's some predictions, and they're kind of haunting. They're troubling. And it's certainly what Jesus gave in his predictions is that the disciples, as they were hearing these, it was troubling. It was not these encouraging things. And so let's look. Matthew chapter 17, starting in verse 22. It says, after they gathered again in Galilee, Jesus told them, the Son of Man, and that's Jesus referring to himself, the Son of Man is going to be betrayed into the hands of his enemies. Betrayed. That's a harsh word. Betrayed. And not only did Jesus predict his betrayal, he predicted who would betray him. Now, you could read about this in John chapter 13, when Jesus is letting the disciples know, one of you is going to betray me. And he lets them know that he's going to let the one know that he knows it's that one, that the way that he's going to interact with them in the bowl and this bread, to give it away and to let that one know that I know that you are going to betray me. And it was Judas Iscariot. And he let Judas know. And Judas ended up betraying him. You know, I think betrayal is one of the most horrific acts of humanity. It is. You know what makes it so horrific? Because, see, betrayal can't happen unless we give somebody our heart. Betrayal can't happen unless we let somebody into our lives, that we welcome them in and we get really close with them. That's the only way that we could ever experience betrayal. And Jesus certainly experienced it. And I think it's the most horrific act of humanity, is the way that we would build trust with somebody just to betray them. Now here's just one more way where Jesus and I are not alike. Because see, if I were to know in advance know that somebody was going to betray me that I was close with, here's what I'm going to do. Let's just sever the relationship right now. Why wait? Why delay? Why build up more? Let's just be done with it now. That would be me. Because that wasn't Jesus. Because his love is so pure. And his love wasn't based on what Judas was going to do to him or for him. He just loved him. That's Judas. And Jesus continued to love him. Let's look further. Verse 23. Jesus still speaking about himself. He will be killed, but on the third day he will be raised from the dead. And the disciples were filled with grief. You know, I think the reason that they were filled with grief is because they couldn't wrap their head around that he's going to be raised again. And all they could think about was the fact that he's going to be killed. And this is their leader. Betrayal. But remember, this is a prediction. This is Jesus saying this in advance. Now, I know that I might have some skeptics in the room that are going, yeah, but the Bible was actually written after the events took place and written dozens of years later after the events, the disciples are given this. And so couldn't it be that they're just telling this stuff and saying this stuff to try to make it look like? Well, they could, but here's why I'm convinced that they didn't. Because, see, the disciples weren't the only one that was hearing this prediction. In fact, the religious leaders who opposed Jesus had heard this prediction too. And it was because that they had heard this prediction, it's why they went to the Roman officials and said, hey, now that Jesus is in that tomb, we need you to seal it. We need you to put guards there on watch. Because he said that he was going to rise again in 3 days. And we don't want anybody coming in and taking his body. And then everybody going, oh, Jesus rose from the dead. His body's not there. This is why it was all sealed up. So no, this isn't something that was just the disciples that Jesus had said something to. This had become known. Well, let's break this down. Third day. Some of you guys might be out there and have done the math, and you go, okay, from Friday to Saturday is 1 day. From Saturday to Sunday, that's 2 days. But Jesus said third day. And you're going, how do you get there? Well, you have to understand the culture. You have to understand what they looked at and how they counted. First of all, you have to know that for them, whenever the sun would set, that's when the next day began. The next day always began at sunset in the Jewish culture. And this time in the Bible. And so you've got that piece going for you. But also, they would count any portion of a day, they would just consider that to be a full day. We might relate to that in some sense when we're talking about our work day. And we had a long work day. Man, I worked all day. And we say, how long is a day? A day is 24 hours. I worked all day. Because you had to pull this long 9-hour day. But see, we do the same thing. And see, but they would count and they'd say, okay, there's Friday. So they would count all of Friday. There was Saturday. They'd count all of Saturday. And there's Sunday. They'd count all of, and that's how they get to this 3 days. And so Jesus would be raised on the third day. And then we get this word raised. And Jesus conquered death when he rose from the dead. He conquered death. He broke the grip of death when he rose from the dead. See, without the resurrection, there would be no Christianity. Without the resurrection, we wouldn't be gathered. Not just today, but any Sunday. We wouldn't be doing this. But it's because Jesus rose again. Let me share with you something that maybe you don't know that's in our Bible. There are 10 different accounts of resurrection in our Bible. There's Jesus' resurrection, and there's 9 others. 9 other resurrections in our Bible between our Old Testament and our New Testament. What was different about Jesus' resurrection from those other 9 events? A few things that stand out. Jesus rose from the dead on his own power. Nobody else rose from the dead on their own power. Jesus predicted that he was going to rise again. Nobody else said, hey, I'm going to die, but don't worry because I'm coming back to life. Nobody else did this either. And then for Jesus, he's the only one who has experienced resurrection and never had a second death. Everybody else that had a resurrection died again. But not Jesus. Because he conquered death and then he ascended into heaven. And he did not die again. The death and resurrection are the most important events of all history for all eternity. The most important. There is nothing more important than Jesus giving his life and coming back from the dead. He rose again. Jesus' resurrection is permanent. Let's look at another one. 4 down. What Jesus died on. 5-letter word. Cross. Again, a prediction. John chapter 8, verses 28 and 29. So Jesus said, when you have lifted up the Son of Man on the cross, then you will understand that I am he. I do nothing on my own, but say only what the Father taught me. And the one who sent me is with me. He has not deserted me, for I always do what pleases him. See, the meaning of the cross is death. And when it comes to the cross, it is arguably the most beloved symbol in Christianity. It's the cross. And yet there's some people, even denominations, that for them that cross still shows this image of Jesus on the cross as a way of saying, look what Jesus did for me. Look at the sacrifice that he's made for me. Look at the pain that he went through for me. And then there's others that what they do is they have a cross that's as an empty cross. And the reason it's empty and it's there is because the grave is empty, that Jesus conquered death. He's not suffering anymore. And so it's a cross. But either way, it is the most beloved symbol in all of Christianity. And the cross, this instrument of death, that for a 1,000-year period, it was the go-to instrument for executing people. Let's look at 10 down. Jesus' ultimate purpose for coming to earth. 9 letters. It is sacrifice. I don't want to say it wasn't salvation because that is true, but we're going to look at the specific prediction that Jesus made that has the ultimate purpose for him coming to the earth as sacrifice. John chapter 10. We're going to look at 17 and 18. So verse 17 says, the Father loves me because I sacrifice my life so that I may take it back again. So why did Jesus have to be sacrificed? Why did he have to be slain? Why did he have to go through this? See, the reason for the sacrifice is redemption. That's the reason. The reason for the sacrifice is redemption. That the only way that we could be redeemed, the only way that we as people could be made right before God is if there would be a sacrifice, a sacrificial payment for sin. Christ's sacrifice on the cross is the culmination of God's love and his justice. It is. It's the sacrifice that Jesus made on the cross. It is the culmination of God's love and his justice. That he loved us so much that he sent his one and only Son. And it's the culmination of justice. Because sin demands a payment. And that payment must be lifeblood. And the cross, and the sacrifice on the cross, it is the culmination of this. Got 2 left. They'll go quickly. One down. The way Jesus approached our need for a sacrifice. This is a tough one. Not normal speak for us. The answer is voluntarily. Voluntarily. So let's look at this in verse 18. No one can take my life from me. I sacrifice it voluntarily. For I have the authority to lay it down when I want to and also take it up again. For this is what my Father has commanded. Jesus volunteered himself. And yes, he says, nobody can take my life because he chooses to lay it down. He chose to take on the sin of the world. And he volunteered for your benefit. For your benefit. And he volunteered for my benefit. He volunteered for his most prized creation, humanity, to be restored. The last one, 15 down. Jesus was given a death blank by the religious leaders. 8 letters. I think I've heard it. Sentence. Jesus was given a death sentence by the religious leaders. But again, this was his prediction. Mark chapter 10, starting in verse 33. Listen, he said, we're going up to Jerusalem where the Son of Man will be betrayed to the leading priests and the teachers of religious law. And they will sentence him to die and hand him over to the Romans. And they will mock him, spit on him, flog him with a whip, and kill him. But after 3 days, he will rise again. See, guys, it's Easter Sunday. It's the day that we celebrate what Jesus has done because what he did was for our best interest. And I believe that these next 2 Sundays are going to be worth your time. To be here as we look at these words that are perplexing, what it is that these people were saying about Jesus. And then to look at the pleading words with an understanding of what was this pleading all about and why and how was Jesus pleading our behalf when humanity was the one that put him on the cross. It's going to be a great couple of weeks. And that 3rd week, we're going to be doing communion. And I hope you'll be here as we get to celebrate that in a very special way. It's going to be a powerful moment. Let's pray. God, thank you for Easter. I thank you for what you did, that you loved us so much, that you gave your Son, your only Son who you loved, to send him here, to be a sacrifice for us. Now, there's parts of that could just be so hard to understand. But for us to say thank you, it seems so trite because it's just not enough to just verbalize a thanks. May we thank you in the way that we live our life. May we thank you in the way that we praise you and live a life of purpose for you. May we grow in the way that we have faith that is devoted to you. Jesus, I pray you'll bring us back so that we can grow closer and closer to you. It's in your name we pray. Amen.